This is a WKYT podcast.
Hello, everyone, to another episode of Conversations with Victor and Wes. Andrea is off today. She's out on a story. If you're listening to this on Thursday, the day it's coming out, then you'll know that the weather's played a little bit of havoc with everyone. We've had a lot of stuff going on, so everybody's been out covering different stuff. And Andrea had to go out and I think cover a dedication of a road. So with Sturgill Simpson. So it's not too bad of a day. She gets to go out and see him. So I am today talking to Wesley Browne, a local business owner, lawyer, and author. He's written a book kind of based on what he knows. I'm looking forward to it. It's called Hillbilly Hustle. And I just finished a really good conversation with him. Lasted about half an hour, so I'm going to keep this short. So here you go. All about a Kentucky author and his first published book. You'll hear that obviously anybody who's writing writes a lot. So this isn't the first thing he's written, but it is the first thing that's going to be published, and a lot of neat events going on around that. Here you go. All right, I'm here with Wesley Browne.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Quite the treacherous drive in.
Yes, I am very glad to be here this morning. It was touch and go there for a minute.
So you've written a book. We're here to talk about that, but I already knew you from covering court all over Eastern Kentucky. I've seen you. I've seen your wife. I went to EKU, so I've eaten a lot of Apollo pizza.
I like it.
So you have a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. Tell me about all the different things you're involved with.
So my day job is as an attorney at Browne Law Office in Richmond. I also practice in Fayette County. I also practice in every surrounding county, Rockcastle, Estill, Clark, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My wife actually runs the public defender's office for Madison, Clark, and Jackson. And so she's all over the place too. So if you cover the courtroom beat at all, the Browne family are sort of familiar faces at the courthouses.
And court in Eastern Kentucky is definitely a special experience.
It's amazing.
If you've never been, it's you people know that they're going to court, and they still you'll just see people like showing up in like cut off shirts or like they still got their ball cap on. They don't understand why they got to take it off. I mean, it's just
the things I've seen. I saw a guy whose brother showed up at his jury trial with a T-shirt. This was actually in Jackson County, and he sat front row, and it said, "Support your local outlaw." I was like, "That's what you wore to court." There was a day we've gone through different stretches too. We do the over under in the attorney lounge and back before docket started. We do the over under on Stone Cold shirts back in the day.
There you go. Well, I was going to say Dale Earnhardt. That was a big one there for a while. It's like I got to wear my good shirt.
Earnhardt was big. Duck Dynasty at one time too.
All right.
We do the over under on how many Duck Dynasty defendants we had in a given day. One of my other favorite things is the women with the snuff ring in their back pocket who stand at the bench with their snuff ring. You see it a lot on the guys. A little more rare breed when you see it with the ladies, but you nice. Do see it.
Well, especially from us, from shooting, everybody from the back. There were multiple times when I've had people walk up and you see just like "juicy" written across the back of the pants.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, that's going to be interesting on camera.
Sometimes you find out who's among attorneys. You won't know someone's losing their hair, and then you'll watch the news, and you guys will get a shot. You go, "Oh, I didn't know he was losing his hair," or whatever it is that's going on with him.
I've had people tell me that before. Yeah, they're like, "Could you be a little kinder with the zoom ins there?"
I watched myself on TV not long ago. I was like, "Man, I have got to lose some weight." I had no idea how fat I got until I saw myself on TV.
Well, you do look. Whenever I go out and people occasionally will recognize me, and they always tell me I look bigger on TV, and so then I wonder, like, well, I'm not a small guy, so I'm curious how big I look on TV. So, yeah, your neck always looks bigger.
Oh gosh, it's a hard reality to face to see yourself on TV.
So you've got your law practice, then you also have Apollo Pizza, multiple locations of that now. I actually ate at the one over on Leestown Road. Is that the new one?
In the Meadowthorpe Center. That's the newest one. We took over in 2012. Apollo has been around since 1981, right down near campus on South 2nd Street in Richmond. And then we went into northern Madison County. It's called Apollo Pizza at Little Sack. It's carry out and dine in only. We actually have a place in Irvin called Steam Engine Pizza Pub.
Okay.
And Steam Engine Pizza Pub also has the Steam Engine Session Room, which is a little music venue, and there's a lot to that, and it's a long story, and I won't go into it all. And then we went into Berea with Apollo Pizza at Old Town, and then recently we opened in Meadowthorpe. And then we have an offshoot brand called House of Q, which is a barbecue place. It's at Kentucky Proud Park. It's at Kroger Field, and it's coming soon to Lexington on a standalone shop. I can't share all the details, but it originated in Irvin.
Okay.
And so right now we smoke all our meat in Irvin. But yeah, we have a barbecue restaurant. Now, I always want to clarify, I am a full-time lawyer. People run those things. I help oversee all that stuff, and it's a big team. So that's how I pay my bills. So I always want to make sure people know I am still a full-time lawyer. These are sort of side hustles that we do, and makes life interesting. That's for sure.
Did you grow up? Are you originally from Richmond, or were you?
I'm not. I actually grew up in a suburb of Detroit, about 15 miles north of Ann Arbor. I moved to Kentucky to go to UK Law. My wife, who's from Lawrence County, was in all my classes at UK Law my first year. And early on, she said, I just want to let you know, Michigan's a problem for me. I'm not leaving. And I said, that's fine with me because I want to stay. And so I've been here. I've lived more of my life in Kentucky now than I did there. I figured that was about a year or two ago. I realized that was the case, but I've been a Kentuckian for quite some time now.
So you come down. I'm guessing Lexington, decent sized city. So that's not that odd for you. But then you start going out into the smaller counties. What was that adjustment like?
It was interesting. I had some. So when I went to practice law, especially, it was different. But I did have some idea of it because my wife was from a rural county, and I spent a lot of time in rural counties. I loved it kind of from the start. There's a reason I picked Kentucky. We came to Kentucky a lot when I was young, and I celebrated birthdays in Kentucky. I remember one of my birthdays was celebrated at the horse park, and coming here was not a coincidence. It was a state I always really liked. But my first job out of law school was I was an assistant county attorney in Madison County, and they assigned me to Berea. So I went one county south to Richmond, and then I went another city south to Berea.
Smaller.
And it's funny because this is referenced in Hillbilly Hustle, the book, how a small distance in Kentucky culturally can be very big. Mm-hmm. It was eye-opening to do court in Berea because it was sort of a different world, and I was in the thick of disputes in Berea, and a lot of people who did get in trouble in Berea were from Jackson County or Rockcastle County as well. The Berea
because they were coming to the big city.
Oh yeah, well, I don't mean to impugn any particular county; it's across the board, but people love to shoplift from the Berea Walmart. I prosecuted so many Berea Walmart theft cases you wouldn't believe it. The other things were disputes about animals, fights about dogs and livestock and things like that. Another one that was constant was like too much window tint. I remember the old courthouse, the judge would have people pull their car up because you could see into the parking lot.
He would look at it.
And he would look to see if they took their window tint off their cars, and they would. And just one of my favorite things, there was a judge there named Judge Moore back in the day, and people would get traffic issues, and he would always find them guilty of improper equipment. And he would always say, and you're the improper equipment. We could spend this whole thing on the court system, I swear.
No, I believe it. I mean, so I grew up in Clay City.
Okay.
Not too far from Irvin, and it is interesting whenever I tell people, like, I grew up about 45 minutes east of Lexington, but there is a huge difference between Lexington and 45 minutes east of Lexington.
It's really actually pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I love it, and it's one of the interesting things people who are from outside the state don't realize. Just because we have so many counties, that people growing up here identify more with the county than they do with the city. If you talk to some, it was one of the things that, when I first started EKU, people would talk. You could tell who was from Kentucky and who wasn't, because they say where you're from, and somebody say like, oh, I'm from a town in Ohio. Just be like, oh, I'm from Cleveland, and then somebody else would be like, oh, I'm from Powell County. I'm from Estill County. I'm from, and so you could tell who was. I
remember that when I moved here, that finding things like that just kind of interesting. My assimilation was sped up a lot by falling in with a native Kentuckian
Local.
and that family. I mean, I fell in with her family really pretty quickly, and they would explain stuff to me. And, it's funny. I actually talked to another person who does writing and art about Kentucky, and it's actually someone who's native to Kentucky, but who moved away for a long time. And he said some of the things he does now, he couldn't have written if he stayed, because he sees the place in a different way. Mm-hmm. Which is, I mean, I also understand that people who've led their whole life here who are making art are seeing things in a different way too that we couldn't see. But one of the ways you get sort of the different facets of Kentucky in art is to get different perspectives. And while I don't like when people drop in for a couple weeks and write about Kentucky, I felt pretty comfortable doing it given the fact that I have been here a very, very long time, and this has been home. My kids are native Kentuckians. My wife's a native Kentuckian. And I've fallen in with the writers from here, and they've kind of taken me as one of their own. But you get, one of my good friends is Silas House, and he writes some of the best books about Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And his way of writing about it is so different than my way of writing about it. And the way he writes about it is probably... I mean,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and let's say I want to sell my book. He's better than me, okay? I can.
But that's
own
a pretty
that.
high bar. I mean,
yeah,
let's be.
But he couldn't write what I wrote. Even it's lesser, but he couldn't write it because his perspective's different. I could not in a million years, for 100 reasons, write what he writes. But I think it's interesting to see kind of every version, as long as it's an accurate version, every version of the state. Or I should say the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, whenever I see people use the word Appalachia, it always cracks me up because I told somebody here because I pronounce it wrong. Apparently, I don't know. It's Appalachia, whichever way you're supposed to say it, I don't say it right.
Throw an Appalachia.
Well, there you go.
That's the
and
training
so
device.
somebody said, they're like, well, you're from here. Aren't you supposed to know how to say that? And I'm like, we never said that growing up. The only people who said that were people who were studying us. Like, that was really it. Like growing up, you never said, like, oh, I'm from Appalachia. It's like, no, I'm from Eastern Kentucky.
I was taught the proper pronunciation very soon after I got here. And, it's arguable that it's something else. And there's other areas of Appalachia where they say it a different way. So are they wrong if they live in Appalachia to say it the way they say it? I don't know that they are. All I know is that I conform to the local custom and I say it. I do as the locals.
That's my other thing. I'm like, well, I'm from here, so I feel like however I say it, I'm from.
You get a pass.
But it just cracked me up. Like, yeah, we have. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people like to outside looking in, try to dissect everything. So yeah, if you've lived here, as long as you have, you are part of it. So this is all kind of a roundabout way of saying you've got all of this experience in courtroom, owning businesses, all this comes together. And kind of, is that what inspired you to write this book?
To a good degree, yes.
Is this your first book?
Yes, this is my first published book,
and
we can talk about that.
I was going to say, for a lot of people, it's like, yes, this is my first published book. It's not my first, obviously you've been writing for...
I started, well, I always wrote. I wrote from the time I was in elementary school. When I wasn't the best behaved student, and I made good, decent grades, but I was not always the most focused. My teachers would always go, Wes, it's creative writing day, because they knew that's the day when I would tune in and do right. But I always wanted to write. I always wanted to be a writer. I went to law school ultimately, but even then I knew that's what I wanted to do. The first novel I wrote, unpublished, I wrote I started it between my first and second year of law school. After classes were over, actually I was taking one class. I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings, taking one class and writing a novel on the side. That's what I did with that summer. But that was like 23 or 24 years ago. I'm not that good on math, but close to that. This is the fourth novel that I've written, first one published. I started to go to the Appalachian Writers Workshop in 2011, and actually that's where I got to know. I read all of Silas's work, but that was the first time I met him. He was actually my teacher. I applied and tried to get into his class and did. And so it was 3 years later. I went 5 years in a row. It was in 2014. That was the second to last time I went. And I recommend to anyone who's interested in writing, whether you're from here or not, go. It's for writing. It's in Appalachia, but it's not just about Appalachian writing. I was in a novel class with a novelist named Amy Green, and we were supposed to develop a novel concept and a protagonist. And I'd actually kind of been thinking about the fact that before we owned Apollo, you could buy marijuana there. It was not a huge secret.
People would come and ask for a little something extra on the side, that kind of thing.
What I had always heard, and I'm not sure it was across the board, but one of the codes was the spinach special. If you ordered the spinach special at Apollo, that was like a dime bag. And, you know, it's funny because I was in the legal system. The Richmond police would talk about it. They'd be like, oh, yeah, we know what they're up to. And, you know, they wouldn't really bother them unless they got out of line, and they really didn't get out of line. So it wasn't a high priority thing, but you could, that was going on there. I was good friends with the owner. We never discussed it. I didn't ask. He didn't say anything. I don't even know if it was him. It could have been employees. He might have been aware. He might not have been aware. I don't know. I don't know. I truly don't. I don't want to know. It's fine.
I was going to say, yeah, something that's just better off not knowing.
Yeah, I wasn't his lawyer, but, you know, we kept things sort of privileged and confidential between us when we would talk. We'd go out to lunch and talk about every other thing in the world. He would talk loudly about politics in restaurants, and I would always be like,
you just want to shrink down.
A little quieter, bud. But anyway, I was at that workshop, and I thought, okay, I am going to create a character who is the owner of a pizza shop on South 2nd Street in Richmond, Kentucky. I didn't call it Apollo. I thought that was a little too close to home. It's actually called Porthos Pizza.
All right.
I've literally had, I think, 2 people who have seen Porthos Pizza and known who Porthos was.
Like one of the 3 Musketeers?
You're the third.
All right.
Number 3, Victor Puente. You're a winner. And he's sort of the comic relief. He's kind of heavy set and a little bit silly.
The Oliver Platt character.
Exactly. And that's to a great degree who I think of it. That shows awesome. When we came up is that he's Oliver Platt. But anyway, I made a character named Knox Thompson. That was who I kind of created in this novel class. And I really went really far out of my way to make sure it was not my friend.
Yeah.
I wanted to differentiate him a lot, so I didn't make him resemble him, really have his personality. I made him very different. And it started there. And we had to give it a title, and I slapped the first pizza title on it I could think of. This has had like 6 or 7 titles. That was one of the hardest things about it. I had it under contract. It was actually called Pie High when I got it under contract. My friend Robert Geip, who's another author, that was his title. I just couldn't come up with a title. The original working title was Slice. That is like the most obvious generic name for a pizza shop, anything. I think there's like Chance the Rapper.
I was going to say, there's a movie with Chance the Rapper that's called Slice. It wasn't like a sci-fi type thing. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard about it.
It's like a sci-fi / pizza shop.
I think Paul Scheer's in it too. Anyway.
Slice was dying anyway. That was the final nail, was when I saw the Chance the Rapper thing. I was like,
it's been taken.
I already felt like this is not the name I want, but I just left it on there for a while. And I actually would change it and come back, and I would give up. This one that we landed on, Hillbilly Hustle, it came up where I do my best thinking. I was in the shower one day, and that name occurred to me. I'm not the first person to use it. Here's what's funny. There's like a rap song called that, and I didn't know that when I thought of it, but somehow I keep coming back to hip-hop culture when it comes to this book. And I saw a guy, getting back to the court system stuff, about 2 or 3 months ago. I was in Rockcastle Circuit Court, and there was a guy on who was in some level of trouble, and he had what looked like a Harley Davidson tattoo on the side of his neck, and it was clearly a jailhouse tattoo. And I looked a little closer, and it didn't say Harley Davidson. So I kind of squinted my eyes and checked it out, and it said Hillbilly Hustler. That was his neck tattoo. And I very surreptitiously got a photo of him, and it's a full-length photo, and then I shrunk it down. The iPhone's clarity, whatever you call it, is really good because I shrunk it down so you can't see who it is, but you can just see the tattoo. That is a very treasured picture for me. But the Hillbilly Hustlers out there, it's out there as a name, but I settled on it in part. Well, one of the things is as soon as I got out of the shower, I texted my editor. I was like, I have a name. I don't know what you're going to think. And she texted back almost immediately, I like this name. Let me check with the director. And about 2 days later, they're like, we want to go with this name. It's marketable. It's catchy. It'll look good on the cover of a book. One of the things, there used to be a stigma about the word hillbilly, and that's kind of become an old way of thinking now.
Because I'll say, growing up, we described ourselves as hillbillies.
Right.
I mean, that's like my uncles be like, "Oh yeah, we're a bunch of hillbillies."
The younger people are way more likely to see that in a positive light and take it positively, and that's how I intended it. And kind of the hustle part, I don't want to sit here and bag on hillbilly elegy. I'm not a fan. I know some people like it. I'm not going to get into some big debate about the merits or the what's wrong with it, but somewhat an answer to that as well, because pretty much everyone I know from central but particularly eastern Kentucky, Appalachian Kentucky, they hustle their butts off. They bust ass. I do not understand.
You don't, and the one thing you don't understand, unless you know poor people in eastern Kentucky, you don't understand how hard they work.
Oh gosh, the amount of people who have 3 side hustles who are just doing everything they can to make it. The broader country in the world focuses on this percentage of Kentucky who maybe don't do that. That's everywhere. As we talked about, I grew up in Michigan. It's no different there, and the towns are no different there, and the people, in some ways, are no different there. There's these different sort of stratas of people who act different ways. For some reason, there's this insistence on focusing on folks in Kentucky who maybe aren't doing well. There's so many people who are doing absolutely the best they can, and they are working so hard to do it. And so that's what I kind of want to focus on. And the cover design was done by Than Saffel. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's the in-house designer for West Virginia University Press. I loved his cover design. It has swagger. That's what I wanted.
Pops, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's been really fun. We've done like T-shirts and stickers and stuff. If it were a different cover, I'm not sure that would have happened. But I
can see that just being a cool T-shirt too. Yeah, that just said Hillbilly Hustle.
Those came in yesterday. I almost wore it here this morning, and then I was like, you're not supposed to really wear the T-shirt to the concert.
We'll talk about your T-shirt you are wearing in a second, because I'm a fan of that too.
Okay.
But so tell us about the general premise of Hillbilly Hustle. Obviously, you've got your main character, this pizza shop owner.
Mm-hmm. Knox Thompson is the main character. Knox is a poker player. One of the reasons he's a poker player is because I'm a poker player, and one of the threads that goes through this, I use things with which I was familiar.
Write about what you know, because you know you're going to get it right. Yeah.
So I used to play in every backroom game in Madison, Fayette, every county around.
There was one up behind Sonny's Barbecue. Was that the one?
Yeah,
up there. I played in that one once.
I played in a bunch. Well, I played in one in Big Hill pretty often that a buddy of mine ran, and I was down there, and there was a fella from Jackson County who kind of focused in on me and was like, you should come to our game over the pool hall in McKee. And he's giving me all the details and telling me all this stuff. So I was like, okay, and I'm taking it down and remembering the date. The game breaks up, and my buddy who ran the game in Big Hill, it was a perfectly on the level legal game, and he's a professional. He approaches me afterward and he said, do not go to that game in McKee. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, either you're going to get cheated at that game, or if you win, you're going to get robbed. He's like, I can about bet you. He's like, that is not an on-the-level game. Do not go. I didn't go. I never went. But
what if you had?
What if I had? Knox Thompson goes to that game, and Hillbilly Hustle kicks off with Knox Thompson walking into the game, and I put it over the arcade. I tried to be really pretty accurate. Other than Porthos Pizza, all of the sites, for the most part, are actual places in central Kentucky. A lot of the places in downtown Richmond are mentioned. There's scenes in some of the Babylon Gyros, Purdy's Coffee. They talk about going to the Paddy Wagon. The Frostiette, which is like near Sand Gap in Jackson County. I love the Frostiette. I cannot come and go from McKee without stopping. Most of it is accurate. I put it over the arcade rather than the pool hall. I don't know if there's much of a difference.
Just out of respect.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I love Jackson County. I like going to Jackson County, but there's some more nefarious things that happen there. Jackson is one place where I took some liberties with. Jackson County is one of the places where I did take a few liberties and fictionalize a little bit more, because I don't want it ever to seem like I'm pointing a finger at anyone specific about anything that's going on. This book is pure fiction. It has a basis in reality, but there's nothing true in it. None of the named characters are real people. Not one of them. I drew from a lot of people I knew and took characteristics of a lot of people I knew, but you cannot find a real person in it except some of the employees of the local businesses in Richmond who are not named pass through scenes and different things. There's a couple of Easter eggs for people from around here who will go, hey, I know who that is. But the named characters are 100% fictional. The everything that happens in the book is none of it really happened.
Awesome. And so if somebody wants to check this out, I guess you all are doing a couple different release type things.
Well, tonight, I don't know when this podcast goes up, but tonight we are at both Country Boy breweries. When we took over at Apollo in 2012, Country Boy was about 6 months old, and we kind of came in together. We started selling craft beer at Apollo, which was not something that Apollo was known for.
DH has been on here a few times with us.
Oh, yeah, DH is a good friend. Nate Coppage is a good friend. Evan Coppage is a good friend. And Nate and I were actually conceived of this idea of doing a beer, and it was really funny because I have a buddy named David Joy who lives in Western North Carolina. He had his debut novel called Where All Light Tends to Go. Great book, by the way. Innovation Brewing in Sylva, North Carolina, brewed a beer for that. And I'm pretty tied into the local craft beer scene, and particularly Country Boy. And I'm friends with the folks at the other breweries too, but I kind of socially run around with the guys from Country Boy. Nate said, look, I'll brew that beer. I want to do it. I need to read the book first. I have to know.
I have to be inspired by this book.
I have to know my inspiration for brewing this beer. So he read it, and we put our heads together, and we Nate and I have a tendency to have these phone calls that go on way too long because we both love to talk. We both are big talkers. And he said, we could always do like a hemp beer, but what do you think about that? I said, I don't want to do that. He said, I don't want to do it either, but I thought I should put it out there. We talked about doing maybe like a smoked beer to make it like a pizza beer, and we were both like, no, we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And he had an idea that I thought was really pretty genius, and it opened the door to a lot more options. He said, what about a beer where if you were smoking pot and eating pizza, this is the beer you would want to drink? And I was like, that's perfect, because we can brew literally anything at this point, because what beer, don't you want to drink? I did take it pretty seriously, though. I went and asked some questions of friends of mine who are knowledgeable about like Appalachian food and Southern Foodways with like the Southern Foodways Alliance. And we started talking about flavor combinations that were used around here and have been. And citrus fruits used to have come into the region for a very long time. And one of the things that was common, at least fairly common, is you would use lemon and blackberry together. It was a good flavor combination. And so I proposed that to Nate, and he started talking about flavor profiles and the bitterness at the end and all this stuff that went over my head.
Like, I just want it to taste good.
Yeah, but the end conclusion was like, that'll make a really good beer. So Hillbilly Hustle Lager is a lemon blackberry lager.
Sounds awesome.
It is lemon on the front and blackberry on the back. It's not overpowering. It's oddly creamy, right, which I'm told has something to do with they use the citrus peels, and you wouldn't think it, but it makes beer creamy. There's this creamy lemon front end, and then the blackberry sort of washes over your tongue. It's really good.
So you can read the book, you can drink the beer,
you can
kind of live the experience.
Oh yeah, you can. And I will say the other person on the brewing team was Stephanie Miracle. Stephanie is the only female brewer that we're aware of in Lexington. I think there's one other in Central Kentucky, but it's kind of fun. I went to the brewery and they did all the real work and are responsible for the flavor.
You kind of taste a little bit here and there.
Yeah, and I cleaned out the mash thing and blah blah blah. I did some grunt work just to say I was involved. In no way does the finished product have anything to do with my abilities. I've homebrewed and I was, somewhat so-so at it. The pros did this beer. So
awesome. So you all, we got the beer events coincide with the book, and then if you want to pick up a copy, oh, sorry, I was going to say.
Oh, we're in Georgetown at 6. We're in Lexington at 8. And then on Saturday, we have another beer event at Joseph Beth.
Okay.
Silas House and I are in conversation at 6 o'clock, and they have Bronte Bistro. And Bronte Bistro will have Hillbilly Hustle Lager. We also have custom glassware. It's got the Hillbilly Hustle cover logo on it, and then on the backside it has an Apollo logo, and it has a Country Boy logo. Those come with the beers, so you can score a glass. And we're doing a bunch of events with beer. We're going to Wrigley Tap Room. We're going to Moorhead to Coffee Tree Books and Sawstone Brewing there. We're going to A Better Brewing in Winchester. I'm forgetting a bunch there. My website is wesleybrowne.com. Brown has an E on the end. Or just Google my name, and Hillbilly Hustle is probably the easier way to get there. They're all on there, but we have a bunch of beer and pizza events. We're going to Saints in Louisville. Sweet. We're teaming up with Carmichael's books there, and there's other authors appearing in it. We're just doing a bunch of stuff. So anyway, we're tying in, though, Hillbilly Hustle Lager at as many of these as we can.
It's pretty awesome. So even if you're not a big fan of books, you might be a fan of beer. And that'll lead you to the book.
Hey, we've got T-shirts. If you don't want to read the book, just get a T-shirt, man. We're cool with that. Although awesome. The one thing I will say is a lot of people who aren't regular readers are reading it and are coming back and saying, "Okay, that was good for me." And that was part of what I was going for. I wanted a book that was really fast-paced and easy and fun. That seems to be the reaction we're getting, is that this is a fun. It's a lark. Publishers Weekly called it wry and thrilling.
All right, nice.
Kirkus Reviews called it a top-notch debut and talked about the voices and stuff. It's gotten all positive feedback, and it's very, very readable. People are reading it in a day or two.
I was going to say, I guess that's one of the good things, is that it's something that somebody can pick up, have it done in a couple of days and just enjoy the experience.
Yeah, I had a lot of help. This was very much a collaboration. West Virginia University Press, you have to go through peer review. I had peer reviewers. I had a lot of friends. This is, in the end, my name's on it. But the reason it turned out well is not all me by any stretch. There's a ton of people.
Which is the case for a lot of big projects that end up well. All right. Well, before we go,
yeah.
Yes, your shirt.
Yes.
I have told so many people to watch Letterkenny. There's actually a legion of us here who are all they'll see me watching. They'll ask what episode we're on. I guess, did you just randomly stumble upon it, or did somebody force it upon you as well? Because that's what happened to me. Somebody was like, no, you need to watch this. I heard enough people talk about it that finally I broke down.
My Robert Guy was one of the people who told me about it. My friends Carrie Mullins and Bobby Ambergy, who Carrie's an author as well, and Bobby's another attorney. We go to court together all the time. They were on me about it, but it was on Hulu, and I didn't have Hulu.
Oh, okay.
And then my son is a freshman at UK named Barrett, and Barrett got the student Hulu account, and he was home for the weekend one weekend, and he put his Hulu account on the home TV.
That's what's on there.
And Letterkenny popped up. I could not stop watching it. And my wife at first was like, "What is this?" and would kind of come and go. And then like the third episode's Fart Book. That is not their finest moment. That's like the worst episode.
That's the one I think my wife started checking out on. She's like, "Oh."
Yeah, so somewhere in there she watched a full episode and she's like, "All right, we're going to have to go back to the beginning." And we binged it so hard. And it is the coronavirus of shows, because it spreads to if one person gets infected with Letterkenny, the next thing you know, everyone they know is on Letterkenny. Logan Miller is a friend who does Giant Robot. It's a T-shirt company. He's actually working on a T-shirt for Hillbilly Hustle right now, a different one. He's doing the Porthos Pizza Staff T-shirt. When we see he and his wife Amanda, all we do is talk about Letterkenny, and we literally have to go, okay, we have to break this up. This is getting stupid. We are adults. There's other topics to discuss.
I'll just sitting around going, to be fair, over and over.
Yes.
All right, nice. Well, there you go. So if you don't trust my opinion, take it from Mr. Browne, Letterkenny. Good stuff. Go out, get his book, drink the beer, live the lifestyle, try to stay out of the courtroom.
Please. Well, stay out of the courtroom. But if you go, call Browne Law Office. As we say, did something stupid, do something smart. Call Browne Law Office.
Possibly one of the best slogans ever. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. Always excited to hear about Kentucky people doing cool things. As for our favorite things this week, I was texting with Andrea. She does have one she wants me to share, and that is bus drivers in Jessamine County who are organizing a donation drive for flood victims. And so that's going to be something that I guess people can give to their bus drivers. They'll be collecting them. Then all of that they plan to load up into the bus. And then, they can bring them in person to the transportation department in Nicholasville. And they can also send them with their student on the bus. So that is pretty cool. A lot of it's pretty severe flooding in certain parts of Kentucky. You may not have seen a lot of it where you lived. It turned out, for a lot of us, we didn't realize how bad it was down there until you just see the video. So, that's what she's got going on. My favorite thing this week, I haven't had a lot going on, but I did get to play a good version of a board game that I enjoy called Clank. There's a version that involves a pyramid and a mummy. You turn the board sideways, and my wife and I have been playing that some at night when the little girl goes to bed. So, some time to spend together instead of just vegging out in front of the TV, which we still do that some. But at least this gives us an opportunity to get angry at each other when one of us makes a move the other doesn't like. All right, everybody. I hope you all have a good day. Go out, check out Hillbilly Hustle, and, remember to be kind to each other. Bye.